Thank you. I hope I can live up to that introduction here. But so my name is Saila Kariat, and I'm the writer, director, and co-producer of The Valley. The Valley is truly, it was a labor of love for me. And announcing here in India during World Mental Health Day has a special meaning because it really deals with the topic of depression and suicide, and does it in the context of present-day world. And depression is actually on the rise in the current environment, even though, by and large, the state of the human condition is improving in many ways. I mean, we're definitely more affluent, more healthy than we were in the past. So it's kind of a big question. Why is it increasing? And that's one of the questions I grapple with in the Valley, which is our present-day value system and what we're focusing on is making us less connected as people and having fewer meaningful relationships in our lives and less of a support structure. And so that's contributing to this whole problem of depression. And I'm sure we'll discuss this further in our panel, but that's kind of the tie between the movie and World Mental Health Day and why we have put this panel together to talk about this topic.
Thank you so much, and I request you to please take your seat. Thank you. Give it up for her, ladies and gentlemen. A very dear friend of mine, but what do I say? Do I talk about her as a human being, an artist, or both? Dilemma for me because she excels in every department. Indian actress, model, DJ. She plays Rupa in The Valley, who's the mother of 2 daughters. Known for Dil Jata Hai, fashion, and the other side of the door, ladies and gentlemen, Suchitra, Pillai. Well, I just met her down for the first time, but I didn't tell her this. I'm going to say it on the mic. My first crush. You know, sometimes I get empowered holding the mic. I was actually speechless down there. I just said, hi, hello, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, a woman who's broken norms in every aspect of her life, as an individual, as an actress, straightforward, upfront, bold, fearless in an approach to everything. Ladies and gentlemen, Pooja Bhatt. The next woman of substance exhibits an outstanding experience of 27 years in the field of counseling, psychological assessment, psycho-educated interventions for children, adolescents, and young adults. She will give us rock-solid insights today. Anureet Sethi. Ma'am, can we have you on board, please? Thank you. Listen, for all the ladies, please, round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. What a day to be together. Saila, you know, we have heard of the awards. We've heard about people giving you critical acclaim. But when I was chatting with you yesterday, today, there's a deeper meaning to your film. It's not just about the film, right? Was it something which you derived from your own life to say, I'm going to make a film on a teenager who's committing suicide because of depression? Was it your own analogy, or was it because you saw someone close to you? How did it start?
So the topic of mental health issues has affected my family, both my extended family as well as my nuclear family. So, I mean, not the family I grew up in, to be clear. So it's something I've always cared about. Living where I live in Silicon Valley in California, I've witnessed a lot of like the pressures that are put on young people and the kind of struggles that they face in trying to meet expectations and live up to the pressures that they are under. And so that was a big inspiration. There was there's a whole slew of suicides in Silicon Valley, a cluster of 14 in 1 year. And that was, shocking to everybody. And right before I started writing the script, there was a girl who jumped off the overpass of one of the highways And I knew her actually. I mean, I didn't know her very well, but she was someone who was an acquaintance. So it was really, it was really shocking for most people what happened there. And so that really, inspired me to start writing the story.
Suchi, you are playing Rupa, the mother of Maya, who commits suicide because of depression.
Yes.
You are a mother in real life. You've got a 10-year-old daughter. When you were working on a subject like this, were you picking up bits and bits from your own life and adding it to Rupa?
Well, I was just hoping that something like that would not happen in my life and in my daughter's life, frankly speaking. Yes, my daughter is 10 years old, and I do see, the pressure that causes kids to go through, depression or, isolation, etc. I see it in our everyday life as well. I mean, she's in the 5th standard, but this need to perform, Mama, I need to get good marks, I want you to be proud of me. And I said, where does all of this come from? I'm happy even if if you don't get good marks, it's all right, but they feel the pressure from such a young age. So when this script came up and everything, of course, it did touch a chord. I've luckily not had depression, but my grandmother, my mother's side of the family has suffered through it, and I've seen it from a young age onwards, what it does to people. So I knew about it per se, but when the film came up, I have to say, I was the only thing I was hoping and praying is that it would never happen to my daughter. So it really helped me as far as waking up and smelling the coffee and seeing, because we all are in nuclear families. I'm part of a nuclear family as well, and to know what not to do, to prevent it from actually happening in my family.
Pooja, you've had quite a journey in your life. You've been vocal about every aspect of your journey as well, which I really admire. Have you ever gone through, like Suchi was just saying now about performance pressure? I have to excel in my films. I've got to excel in every department, which at one point of time made you wake up and say, I'm not happy with life because of performance pressure. Have you gone through that?
I've gone through more than performance pressure. First of all, I'm sorry I'm sounding overtly husky today, but I just am recovering from swine flu.
You're sounding more bassier than I am.
Well, maybe I am more bass than you are, darling. But anyway, that's not the point here. The thing is that I think that when I first became a director with a film called Pap, my father, I remember, wrote me a letter on the day of the release, and he said to me, he said, well, Pooja, while, this day for you might be the most monumental day, you're releasing a film as a director. And for me as a father, I kind of oscillate between the dread of you failing and the hope of you succeeding. For the world, this is just another day. And there are more people out there in Bollywood who would want to see you fail than want to see you succeed. And if you're surprised by that, then which world have you been living in? This is Planet Bollywood, darling. And there is no gratitude in this business. So there's an illusion in people's heads out there that filmmaking, acting, the arts is a place which is kind of full of highs and, events like this where we sit in air-conditioned rooms and we're kind of looking pretty. It's a journey that is just laced with humiliation, frustration, self-doubt. You have to constantly tell yourself that you're worthy because everybody around you is making you feel unworthy. I mean, when we were acting back in the day, when we were modeling Suchi, me and Suchi go back a really long way, we didn't have the pressure of social media. But we still felt so pressurized by society to be the women that we were. And we were born to mothers and fathers who allowed us to be us. But not everyone has that privilege. And I'm just so glad to be here on this day, sitting with these women to kind of make a film that deals with depression, to deals with things that people don't want to talk about, is such a brave act. And I applaud you for that. Because, it takes a lot to put your money where your mouth is and your belief. And, people say, but, you guys don't make relevant films. I'm like, do you really want to watch our relevant films? And somehow it's left to us filmmakers and to us artists to maybe really steer the world towards, like what you said earlier, we've lost our moral compass. We don't share enough anymore. We might be having dinner in the same house on the same table, but we don't know what's passing through the other person's head. So pressure is there. Pressure is there on you from the time you're born into the world. That's if you make it into the world as a woman, either your life is just annihilated before you kind of even make it out, because I mean they prefer a male heir, and then society is trying to kill your spirit. And then you enter a business where you're dissected constantly for how you sound, how you don't sound, the standards of the world, and we buy into it and we fall for it. And this obsession with showing this together face, this happy face, I'm okay. I'm not okay. It's such a relief to hear people say that, I'm not okay. We don't ask for help and we don't hear each other's silences enough. Which is why they say to know each other intimately is to know each other's tragedy. If I don't know your tragedy, I don't know you. That when I share with you what your fears are, is when I know you, and we live in a world where we're comfortable sharing bodies. We're comfortable sharing drugs, but we don't share each other's fears with each other. We don't share vulnerabilities. And for us in the artistic world, it's a dichotomy, because if we lose our vulnerability, and if we lose the accessibility we have to our emotions, then we stop being artists of the kind the world wants to applaud. But at the same time, you've got to go out into the world and be in control and show your together face and not be sensitive and not feel anything. So we're constantly being forced to lead this kind of schizophrenic existence. To find that balance, I think, is tough. But I think the fact that we're here and we're talking about this is the greatest kind of step forward, because you can only confront something when you can acknowledge it. I confronted that I had an alcohol problem by acknowledging I had an alcohol problem. I was deeply depressed. And I thought that the balm that I was using, that was alcohol, was actually kind of going to take that kind of pain away. It made it worse. And until that time, I could actually recognize that about me. I couldn't step away from that. So we all have our ways. Some people deal with depression with workaholic, with work. And as long as you're a workaholic and you're making money for somebody, they don't care about you. But we're all addicts in a way. For some people it's work, for some people it's sex, for some people it's drugs, for some people it's money, for some people it's power, for some people it's fame. So we live in a high stress world. We have tremendous pressure. We feel increasingly more and more alone. We are on Facebook with each other, Twitter with each other, liking each other's posts. Where do we reach out to each other? It's a virtual world. I mean, my friend Subhash, our old friend Subhash K. Jha, we used to keep telling him, yeah, you have a virtual relationship with people. You're not sitting in front of people and touching and smelling them. Where are we touching and feeling each other? My father supposedly left home when I was a little girl. According to the world, I come from a broken home. But my father never left home. It was a matter of geography. So you can be in the same household with a supposed functional family, but that family can be the most dysfunctional family. And the supposed dysfunctional family can be the most functional family. It's about being there for each other, hearing each other. जो हम छुपाते हैं ना मेरे दोस्त, वो हम होते हैं. We are what we hide. And how many of us are really saying what we feel? How many of us are really having a real conversation? So which is why I brought along a little letter, and if the time permits, I would like Suchi to read it. My younger sister Shaheen suffers from depression. She realized that when she was 13 years old. And, we confuse sadness for depression, melancholy for depression. Hers is a crippling depression where वो दिनों के लिए मतलब उठ नहीं सकती है. My father put it beautifully. He said she wakes up in the desert every day and waits for spring, So when you wake up in that wasteland emotionally, and it's very easy for people to say, when Jia Khan committed suicide, I remember Alia and Shaheen and my father lived right opposite them. And Alia came back, she was mortified. She said, what's going on? And we're like, this young girl has killed herself. We were all very upset. We knew Jia. And we and Shaheen were talking about suicide. And she said, have you ever contemplated suicide? So I said, of course I've contemplated suicide. I think every wise or sensitive person at some point has thought that, what if I just kill myself? What if I do? And Shaheen said, yeah, even I have. Alia was mortified. Alia was like, what's going on? Both my sisters have contemplated suicide. What kind of house am I living in? You know what I mean? But the point is that if you can say these things, you generally don't go and pull the plug. It's when you can't talk. It's like, why is Alcoholics Anonymous popular? Because most people don't have anyone to talk to. So the stigma of depression, the stigma of mental health, the stigma of alcoholism has to go. I remember many years ago, there was a young man who kind of went in with a sickle or just slashed a young girl from the northeast at Gateway of India. Ironically, it was my wedding anniversary and me and Munna were going to Sri Lanka where the foreign minister was shot. So there was curfew. So everyone's like, Sri Lanka mat jao yaar, bahut dangerous hai. I land in Sri Lanka and I hear about an incident in Gateway of India in broad daylight. Someone's gone and hacked a girl to death. Why? Because he was suffering from depression. And हम बहुत आसानी से एक दूसरे को पागल बोल देते हैं. Like even when my father made a movie called Arth, there was a scene where Smita Patil's mother and a doctor approached Shabana Azmi. And there was a very senior actor, Om Shivpuri, who had come at that point. And my father said, you're supposed to say in dialogue that she's suffering from paranoia, schizophrenic paranoia. So he said, ये क्या बुलवा रहा है यार, बोल दो ना पागल है. So my father said, नहीं पागल नहीं. This is paranoid schizophrenia. There's a difference. So you see, we kind of tend to sweep things into one bracket, and to simplify it, and then I will not speak anymore, we just need to share more, talk more, reach out and hold each other's hand more. We live in a time where we don't have a problem. Like I say, we share bodies. We don't form connections. We're frightened of bearing our soul. You can deal with my naked body. You can't deal with my bare soul. That's the problem with the world. And I don't want part of that world. And if I'm supposed to be called mad, I would rather be mad with my truth, as Nietzsche said, than be sane with your lies. So that's where I am. But to finish off, congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. We need more work like this.
Thank you.
Suchitra, she just mentioned a letter which Shaheen had written.
Yes.
You have it with you. I'd love you to read it for us. And very thoughtful of Pooja to get it along with us. So thank you so much.
I'm just riding off my sister's pain. See, that's what I'm saying. My father always says, he says, like, you know, the pearl formed because somebody is in great distress and the world calls it art then.
So this is an article that Shaheen had written. When I woke up last week, I didn't feel quite normal. I felt it almost as soon as I opened my eyes. I wanted to get out of bed, but I found myself unable to move. As the minutes wore on and I lay motionless in bed, I began to notice a dark, heavy feeling that inexplicably had not been there since the night before. I felt weighed down and empty all at once, sad and somehow devoid of all emotion. Negative, toxic thoughts began to flood my mind like poison, and they eventually, over the course of the day, distorted everything good in my life to such an extent that I could no longer see good or even believe it existed. Like always, I scanned my mind for a reason, a trigger, anything that could explain why I was feeling this way. I found nothing. Life was for all purposes, good, even great. But here I was, feeling like my whole world was coming crashing down, and I had nowhere to go to stop from being crushed beneath it. This time, this feeling lasted a week. The first time I felt it, I was a couple of months away from my 13th birthday. This can't be normal, I remember thinking to myself. I'd recently put on a lot of weight, and the kids in my class had started making fun of me. I attributed the feeling to the fact that I didn't like being made fun of, and the logical solution emerged. Lose the weight, lose the feeling. Over the next 3 months, I dangerously but diligently ate close to nothing. And unsurprisingly, by the time my 13th birthday rolled around, I had lost all the weight, and no one was making fun of me anymore. But want to know a little secret? That feeling, that dark, niggling, unpleasant feeling, stayed firmly put. That's where my journey with depression began. I now have about 7 to 10 episodes a year, each ranging between 3 to 10 days. There also began a cycle of self-inflicted punishment in the hope that fixing my external world would eventually help fix my internal one. It's an idea I'm still struggling to unlearn. For those who haven't experienced depression firsthand, the idea is difficult to grasp. There is a tendency to confuse depression with sadness. Sadness is a normal human emotion. We have all felt sad and we will all feel sad again. Feelings of sadness are usually triggered by an upsetting event or problem. Once the problem has resolved itself or the event has passed, we usually feel better and the negative emotion passes. Depression is entirely different. It needs no trigger, and sadness is just one of its many symptoms. As Stephen Fry once said, depression isn't a straightforward response to a bad situation. Depression just is, like the weather. Everyone with depression experiences it differently. We all suffer in different ways. The one thing that I found remains constant, however, is the feeling that you are entirely alone. Depression is absolute in its isolation. It forces upon you a blackness and loneliness which, ironically, without help, you are usually powerless to escape. For me, it has brought with it a whole host of issues. Along with bouts of crippling sadness, I also live with insomnia, anxiety, and occasional panic attacks. My insomnia kicked in when I was 16 years old, and no matter how hard I tried or how tired I was, I could never sleep. To this day, going 36 hours without even a wink of sleep is sometimes routine for me. As my symptoms persisted and I took to rarely leaving my bedroom, my family began to notice that something was very wrong. They realized that when I didn't move, it wasn't because I was being a sullen, lazy teenager. It was because I couldn't move. Coming to this understanding was hardest on my mother, who had to watch me lock myself away for years without knowing why. While being depressed is difficult, loving someone who is depressed isn't easy either. It calls for immense patience, kindness, and understanding. As soon as the penny dropped and my mother realized what was going on, she found me a therapist and ensured I learned how to help myself. We should all be so lucky. Last week, while in the throes of a depressive episode, I decided to post about it on Instagram. It wasn't an announcement or a confession, because I've never hidden this facet of my personality, but I recognized that talking about it was a responsibility I had to myself. We spend hours showcasing frivolous, often inaccurate details of our lives, but somehow never talk about the things that matter, who we are and how we feel. When you deny your own personal depression, you deny everyone's depression. You deny the very existence of depression, and you perpetuate the belief that it's something that needs concealing. You perpetuate the shame and suffering of so many that live with it. As a teenager, I believed something was wrong with me. I was ashamed of my inability to be joyful and positive while others could. Life had afforded me endless opportunity and luxury, and I felt like I was being ungrateful by being sad. I, like countless others, bought into the myth that being depressed was a luxury. Today, I feel ashamed of ever being ashamed. It took me years to learn that the way I felt stood independent of my circumstances. I couldn't help the way I was feeling, and I still can't. The only thing I can do is cultivate an awareness of my condition in myself and those around me, and use the tools available to me to help keep me balanced. I no longer believe that there's something wrong with me. All our lives we confine and box ourselves into other people's definitions of normal. We all have our own personal normal, and what is normal for me might not be normal for someone else. The truth of my life just happens to be that my normal takes a little bit more work, care, and the occasional sedative. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Pooja. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pooja. Thank you so much.
I just felt that it's somebody who's in that fire, you know. So it was something that was worth sharing.
Yeah, I think that was beautifully written, and a lot of what you say. When I was writing the script, I did a lot of research on depression, just because I wanted to be very realistic.
Right.
And this could be a letter Maya would write, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, the character it encompasses all the feelings the character is feeling, and the dysfunction of the family, the expectations, the pressures on her. I think what you were talking about when you're as a star, you know, how visible and public your struggles are. I think a lot of people, even the common average person, has the same struggles. I think yours are just more amplified. So
it's amplified. I mean, and for example, I mean, to me,
Pooja, mic, please.
to me, it never bothered me whether I never took myself seriously on the basis of a film being a hit. So I didn't take myself unseriously when my film was a flop. I mean, how I looked didn't matter. I mean, I discovered through the world that apparently I was an attractive woman. I didn't feel that attractive growing up. But what amazes me is at the age of 45, I sometimes bump into people in an elevator who've seen Dil Hai Ke Mantani when I was 19 and they were 19. And they meet me, and obviously seeing me triggers of some kind of adolescent kind of feeling that they've had when they've held their girlfriend or boyfriend's hand in that theater for the first time. And then they look at me and they're like, आप तो बहुत बदल गए. तो मैं बोलती हूँ कि आप भी बदले होंगे अगर आप ही उस उम्र के थे. हाँ, हम तो बदले मगर आप कैसे बदले? So I'm like, that was your fantasy. This is life. Deal with it. You know what I mean? So anybody who was probably took themselves very seriously on the basis of how they looked only would have probably been a basket case. But when people ask me, for example, I celebrate each stretch mark or each line that appears in my face, but that's life imprinting its kind of mark on me. But that's the way I think, and I'm not against anybody who decides to go for surgery. But I'm just saying is that this is what you're dealing with constantly. So you need to know who you are if you want to be. That's why they say showbiz is not for sissies to begin with.
Anurit, and I'm sure our panelists agree and friends from the media as well agree, we hear a lot of cases of depression nowadays. Was it always existent? Or is it because of social media or so much of hype around that we get to hear about it more? Is there genuinely an onslaught of a lot of depression happening around us?
Yes, Siddharth. Depression is definitely on a rise. There are many, many factors responsible for it, really. Of course, like my panelists have rightly said, even Pooja did make a mention, we all are becoming more and more lonely as time is going by. We are very, very sure that we want to be on Facebook, on Instagram, we want to make posts, but we are losing a connect. Our interpersonal connections are becoming poorer. Our support systems are reducing. We lived earlier in joint families. I'm not saying that joint families were very ideal. There were a lot of conflicts even at that time. However, in a larger setup, you could find somebody whom you could connect with, who could sort out certain problems which were daily problems and which now may become bigger ones because you can't share it with anybody. In the nuclear setup, parents are all very busy. They all are working. They are not at home. Children are being taken care of by caretakers. The media world is taking us into a lonely world where we rather be on our screen than be with others. If given a preference, what do you want to do? You're tired after work. If given a chance to go out, you'd say, I'd rather sit back home and watch something on the TV or be on my laptop. So what happens in that? A disconnect is happening. So emotions are something that we all have. Feelings. We're born with feelings, like the girls are saying over here. We start feeling from the day we are born. Do we even recognize our feelings? It is very, very important that we recognize that we have a problem coming up. We are not feeling our normal self. So now what is happening is, in the earlier times, if you were not normal or not feeling normal, there were other people around you in your network who would come to know that. They would recognize that this person's a big extrovert or would talk too much, is not interacting. But in today's time, nobody has the time to see that. So that is why even when I was watching The Valley, it is the father asks the friend that, was there anything about Maya which was different? Was she, and of course there's a mention of her being a very subtle and a sensitive girl. So when a person is, we all are sensitive, but others could be more practical. There are many people who could be highly emotional. So that adds on to us slipping into depression easily, because our emotions is something we need to all learn to tackle with.
No, but that's because you're dealing with an apathetic world.
Yeah.
You are told in this day and age that if you feel something, something is wrong with you. The whole game is to numb you. Why the hell is cocaine so popular? Why the hell is alcohol so popular? Why the hell is pornography so popular? Because the whole idea is to numb you. They do not want you to feel. Society is telling you, suppress what you're really feeling. Say what the other person wants you to hear.
To live like a robo is what is expected.
If I don't say what you want, you
more.
won't give me money, you won't give me praise, you won't give me sex, you won't give me my house, you won't give me my whatever.
Yeah.
So you're just increasingly telling me, toe the line, feel like everybody else, fall in line, and just be a kind of a...
Mechanical. So that is why, Siddharth, now it is on a rise. Earlier, human values, humans were treated as people who wanted to just be together and enjoy and experience life as it comes. Today, there is a set structure for students, for parents have set it all up for their children. Such a high competitive world, they have to meet the targets. For example, I'd just say, very nicely said by you also, Pooja, a father who was always high, a very fantastic director, lot of expectations already set up, not by the parents maybe, by society. So when you have to meet it up, it becomes very difficult for this child to do. And I have a lot of parents coming to me all the while who are engineers, doctors, architects, scientists. And they want their kids to achieve, but the kids don't want to be like that. So when this comes up, this competition, it automatically leads you into a situation where you become low. And when you go into constant lows, it somewhere culminates into a feeling of depression.
You know, a lot of what you said there are choices made in the movie which really address many of the things you said. One of the things is the father is a very successful entrepreneur. So his expectations of his children are really high. Like, you have to reach as high as I've reached. The second thing is he's an immigrant. And many people told me, because it's an American movie, I made it in America, don't put immigrants in there. Don't put ethnic people in there, because you'll be able to, sell your movie much better. And of course, being the anti-commercial person, I didn't do that. I put in ethnic people and put in immigrants. But one of the reasons was, I think it's very central to the story. Immigrants have automatically built-in high expectations of their kids, because they've kind of left their home, left a lot of their connections, and gone to a foreign country, in order to seek a better life. So, there's built-in, first of all, they're a little lonelier, I see, and higher standards.
Yes.
So that was part of the story. The other thing is he lives in the epitome of technology, which is Silicon Valley, and right at the beginning, he says, I drew this graphic actually with a guy with the center with all these connections to all these different people, and he's saying, we're all connected because of this technology. But I feel, and many psychiatrists are also saying, that technology is actually working against connectivity between people. Because, what we used to do, like, we all put appearances to some degree, right? It makes it much easier using Facebook or Instagram or whatever to maintain this appearance of perfection. Absolutely. Because you're not showing, you're showing like a small sliver of your life, right? You're not showing the bad days, the bad points, so people will look, like a lot of young kids or teenagers, they'll look at Facebook and they'll say, oh my God, this person has 1,000 friends. I don't even have 5 friends.
Yeah.
When those 1,000 friends are there's probably one real friend amongst, if that,
So Saila, right now, these days we see all these youngsters, parents come up to us all the time and they say, the main problem that I'm facing is I'm unable to connect with my kid. Even when I'm at home, I'm unable to connect because they all are on their cell phones.
Yeah,
Nobody
screen
needs to
time
talk
versus
to each other.
FaceTime.
Yeah, the kids ask you, why are you not allowing me screen time? And the parent says, I will not allow. That's the major conflict which is on right now. But kids prefer that. But somewhere the screen time is taking you away from humans, actually.
It's not even kids, adults too. Like, I've gone to a restaurant where I've seen the husband and the wife sitting across from each other, and both of them stare at their phone for the entire dinner. They don't even look at each other.
Exactly.
So, I think it's affecting everyone. Parents,
so like
children.
you were saying, Siddharth, rightly, it's not that depression didn't exist. I've lost a lot of my very dear friends and family to depression due to many other causes. There were conflicts in the previous years, a lot of family conflicts, a lot of bigger losses. However, today's reason for depression has changed, because here we have a world, like we said, it's a robotic world that we are moving towards. And when we are getting so disconnected from each other and not sharing our emotions, obviously depression is going to be on a rise.
Suchi, being a mother yourself, do you think it's important for parents to keep a track of their kid's life? Like in Maya's case, the parents didn't even know her.
They didn't know her friends. They didn't know what she was going through in college. Nothing. They didn't know who her flatmate was or her roommate was. Nothing. It is very important, I think, as a mom. I make it a point to definitely find out. I know my daughter's still only 10, but start as early as possible, but to find out who she actually hangs out with all the time, who are her closest friends, who does she talk to, and also not only that, not only the friends, when she comes back home, to have that little amount of time where you talk to them. You talk to them about anything and everything that's happened. It may seem stupid and silly to you, but it may be really, really big for the child, you know. So to make it a point to give that much time to listen. Listening is the main key. And as I said, I mean, screen time versus, she actually says that, my daughter, when she sees me on the phone sometimes a lot, she says, "What, Mama? Screen time better than FaceTime, people time." And then I feel so guilty. Guilt is another huge big factor, you know, for somebody like me. I swear, I mean, Anika, she really comes and says, "What, Mama?" And she makes a joke of it, but I feel really bad about it. And, you know, it kind of makes me wake up and say, okay, keep the phone away. Give them enough time to talk about whatever they want to talk about. You know, depression, a lot of it could be reduced if people actually were able to say what they're going through, to not feel that this is, you know, this is not normal, I shouldn't talk about it, you know, somebody else will feel something, even my own mom may not understand. It is about coming out there and just saying, because this is you, what you're going through. You know, it is you as a person, whatever it is you. And if not to your closest family, who would you talk to? You know, so that's a biggie. I think for families to realize that listening to anything and everything that your child wants to talk about, and not, you know, just pushing it under the carpet saying, "Oh, that's not important." Because I go back to the point where it really upset me, or really worried me recently when my daughter had, you know, just exams. And she's 9.5, she's just about turning 10. And she came and said, "Mama, I really want to do well. I said, "For what do you want to do well, Anika?" "No, Mama, because you used to do well you're an engineer, Mama." I said, Who told you this, you know? Why do you think? "No, but Mama, then everyone will be proud of me." "No, you'll be." I said, "Even otherwise, we're very, very proud of you." So where do they get all these impressions from? And if a 10-year-old this can start affecting her when she's 16, that kind of pressure of, because my mom was an engineer and now she's an actor and I want to be that and I want to do exactly that. You know, you never know where that could lead them, which is why listening and just breaking down those, you know, silly notions that you've got to perform. That's one of the main things, I feel. For sure.
No, and also, I mean, Suchi, to be able to tell your child it's okay to fail.
It's okay, yes, exactly.
You know, you should be applauded for that, because we don't say that enough.
Yeah, I did. And
our own.
Absolutely. I mean, I told her, she said, "Supposing I get 10 out of 25. I said, "Supposing you get 8 out of 25. It doesn't matter. It's an exam. It's just a test. You'll do better in the next one. So what? It doesn't mean you're any less intelligent than, you know, than the other person." "No, but so-and-so gets 24. And I said, so-and-so gets 24. You get 8, so what? You get 10, you get 15. Mommy doesn't care. You know, you have to make them feel comfortable. That's so important.
Also, another very important thing that is coming up, as psychologists, we often feel that, one, we have nuclear families, smaller families. On top of that, we have one child. So there's so much pressure put onto the child, not only by the parents, by everybody around, because the child is the focus. You see? So the child has an expectation, which as parents we need to bring down to a level that whatever you're good at, that is why we really propagate that you go out after your passion, out of your interest, and explore that. I often tell parents that you've brought your children into the world. Are you actually enjoying your children? Or is it just attention? You see? Because they come to me, totally distressed. The child says mother needs counseling. Mother says child needs counseling. So I said, first you sort out who need. You both need, actually. So very often when we give the counseling to the parent, the child is fine. And like you said, we need to track our children, where they are going, whom they are meeting. But we cannot be inspectors on their heads. Right? But till a particular age, like Suchitra is saying, younger ones, you need to monitor more. Adolescents, yes, but they conflict a lot with you, so you have to do it from the back. And once they're adults, we have to learn to trust them and leave them. And they then build a rapport where they become your friends and they want to come back and talk to you.
Yeah, I have a 21-year-old and a 16-year-old girl. And one thing I realize is they're both vastly different. I mean, whoever has this nurture versus nature debate didn't have children, because, you know, they're born, coming out of the womb, they're so different, I think. And one thing that I feel you have to make them believe is that you accept them for who they are. You know, you don't have a cookie cutter model of what you picture them to be, and that's all you'll accept, you know. Whatever their strengths, their frailties, you accept them. And if they fail, you accept them. it should be unconditional. They have to feel that unconditional support. I think that's really key.
And acceptance has to come even from your peer group. Your peer group, your teachers. Very many times, see, we deal with a lot of special needs children too. And these are the kids who lose their self-confidence very easily. They're the ones who lose their self-worth very easily. So it's very important that friends also build on a relationship with the child or your co-mate, so that you really tend to connect. It's not necessary that always it happens with family.
Right.
They may have very special friends, cousins, siblings, even in the movie. Whether the sibling came to know or not, siblings play a very, today Pooja's come so close to her heart, a letter from her sister, because it really matters. I mean, I lost my parents very, very young, and today to me, my siblings are my major support system. If they were not there, I wouldn't be like this today. So it's very important to see whom are we seeking help and whom are we connecting with.
And one of the things I show in the movie is, and I hate to say this, but we Indians are not very good at being supportive as a community. When, like if there's any kind of failure, we kind of tend to point out and sort of seek joy in other people's sorrows, And that's really sad. And especially it's worse in the immigrant community, because you have this hyper-competitive group of people. They're all watching each other's kids and how they're performing, And there's a scene actually where, one of the moms is making fun of the fact that Maya only got into Longview State College or whatever, because that's a big deal. Like every kid, they all know each other's SAT scores or their test scores, and, all the parents will know the other kids' test scores, and they're comparing, and it's a lot of additional pressure and negativity for the kid, who's kind of struggling to find their place in the world. So it's one of the things that Indians could do a much better job, I think, is being a supportive community than we do.
No, I have to second that with every time I went outside the country for a concert, when I was younger and more reckless, I would have these young people come up to me and say that, we relate to you so much because you speak our language, unlike most of the other actors who don't speak our language. And they said the problem that we are having is our parents are stuck in a bubble, and they're wanting to force feed us these kind of Indian values. At the same time, they want us to go out there and compete with a white person or a black person or somebody in the West. So what we are meant to be outside, in office or in college or in university, we come home and we've got to kind of regress. So you're forcing your child to kind of lead this double existence, and it's okay. So I think that there's too much that we brush under the carpet as society, whether it's depression, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's addiction, whether it's female infanticide. And as a society, we need to kind of wake up and talk about it more, because if not, this whole thing is going to crumble like a pack of cards. Because I think Indian spirituality is seeming as bogus in this day and age as most other things. I'm sorry to say, I was in Russia recently, and I experienced more spirituality in a strip bar in Russia than I would in most places of worship in this country. And there's something more dignified about a woman who sits up there and decides to sell her body out of choice, as opposed to the kind of hypocrisy that we lead on a daily mass-based level. So I think it's really about us having a really good look at ourselves as society and telling each other that somewhere we failed ourselves and each other, because we've lost that bond. We've lost that human connect. And what is that human connect? To understand that, hey, the other one feels as much self-doubt as I do, is as vulnerable as I am, is as fearful as I am, and just kind of reaching out, holding hands, and bleeding a little bit together here.
And understanding the normalcy to go through fears, anxieties, low feelings. It's okay. We are not pagal. We are not crazy. And even if we are crazy, I often say we psychologists are crazy. I mean, we are pagal. I have to say, my children tell me. My children often
who do
say,
you guys go to?
We also take...
When you're depressed, who do you go to?
We also seek help from our friends. See, it's because it's very important to go crazy. My kids often tell me, Mom, you're turning crazier as you're growing older. So it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow, I like that. It's okay not to be okay. Well, talking about that, I'm going to open it with our friends from the media. We'd like about 2-3 questions to be thrown at our dignitaries. You just need to lift your hand up and you can shoot your question.
पूजा जी,
जी।
बहुत ही अच्छा लगा जिस तरह से आपने डिप्रेशन के बारे में हमें बताया। दो सवाल है मेरा आपसे। पहला ये कि हम देखते हैं कि हमारी फिल्म इंडस्ट्री में इस तरह के टॉपिक पर फिल्में बहुत ही कम बनती है, तो हमने देखा कि बहुत ही ध्यान से आप ट्रेलर देख रही थी। पहला ये कि ट्रेलर आपको कैसा लगा, और दूसरा ये कि ये मामी फिल्म फेस्टिवल के जरिए ये फिल्म दिखाई जाने वाली, तो क्या आप देखना चाहेंगे और आप चाहेंगे कि इस तरह की फिल्में हमारे फिल्म इंडस्ट्री में और भी बने, जिसे कि इस तरह से जैसे कि आपने जिया खान का एग्जांपल लिया कि इस तरह से।
एक तो मैं ये कहूंगी कि आई थिंक कि ये बहुत ही एक ब्रेव शख्स है जो यहाँ पे बैठी है, बिकॉज इट्स नॉट, आज के दौर में फिल्म बनाना ही इतना मुश्किल काम है कि यू हैव टू बी अ मैसोकिस्ट टू वांट टू डू दैट एंड देन टू गो आउट देयर। अभी हम ऐसी बातें कर रहे थे कि एक तो फिल्म बनाते हैं, उसके बाद में जाके आपको इम्प्रेस करना पड़ता है, आप लोगों को बोलना पड़ता है कि हमारी बातें जो है जरा प्लीज ऑडियंस तक पहुंचा दे जरा शिद्दत से, ताकि कोई आके एक टिकट खरीद ले। तो वो जो है ना ज्यादा मुश्किल होता है फिल्म बनाने से। बट दैट्स व्हाई इन दिस डे एंड एज भी हमारे फोकस कॉमर्स पे इतनी है। टू मेक अ फिल्म लाइक दिस with put your money behind it, to put your money where your mouth is, I must say it's not easy, and I think तब कभी-कभी कोई पागल औरतें ऐसी काम करते हैं that you need to be slightly crazy and a woman to be able to do this, but I think we need more of this. जैसे for example, I mean, मैं एक एग्जांपल दे रही थी अर्थ के बारे में, बोल रही थी एक सीन, जैसे स्मिता पात्र का जो कैरेक्टर था, अभी वो परवीन भाभी के रियल लाइफ एक क्राइसिस पे बेस्ड था। सो इनफैक्ट जस्ट टुडे, आज वर्ल्ड मेंटल हेल्थ डे पे किसी ने एक छोटा सा एक प्रोमो बनाया था इन्वॉल्विंग भट्ट साहब, एंड उसमें परवीन भाभी का उन्होंने एग्जांपल यूज किया है। तो भट्ट साहब ने मुझे मैसेज किया एंड सेड कि कैन यू इमेजिन, वी नेवर थॉट एट वन टाइम दैट व्हाट इज सपोजिटली द ट्रेजेडी ऑफ आवर लाइफ विल बी यूज्ड सो मेनी इयर्स लेटर एज एन एग्जांपल to get people to understand what the ailment is. तो जैसे रोग मैंने बनाई थी एक फिल्म इरफान खान के साथ में, और that was before Angelina Jolie kind of focused her gaze on him. So India had not woken up to Irfan Khan's sexiness yet. But उसमें वो एक पुलिस ऑफिसर का रोल प्ले कर रहा है, और पहला जो सीन है फिल्म में, it opens with a man who's sitting in front of a psychiatrist, और वो बोल रहा है कि कल तो मैंने सोचा कि मैं अपने आप को मार डालूं, खुदकुशी कर लूं, मगर नहीं की, क्योंकि मुझे लगा कि मेरा जो असिस्टेंट है होली था, तो उसका होली जो है बर्बाद हो जाएगा। तो ही इज वेरी मैटर ऑफ फैक्ट अबाउट इट, एंड वो पुलिस ऑफिसर है, हर दिन वो बहुत ही ब्लीक सर्कमस्टांसेस और सिचुएशंस के साथ डील कर रहा है, तो क्यों जिए भाई, उसका एक ये थॉट है। सो आई थिंक कि एक तो हमें ये चीज़ निकालनी चाहिए हमारे दिमाग के जहन से कि ये जो है ना, लोग सोचते हैं हिंदुस्तान में कि डिप्रेशन जो है यार वो एक अमीर, आप अमीर हो तो आपके पास ये मतलब ऐशो आराम है कि आप डिप्रेस्ड हो सकते हैं, हमें तो जाके काम करना पड़ता है। इट्स नॉट समथिंग दैट इज ओनली रिस्ट्रिक्टेड टू द एलीट और द रिच और फेमस। सबको होता है यार, सबको हो सकता है, सबको है। यू नो, आई मीन, हु इज तन्हाई जो है, अगर आपने महसूस नहीं किए तो आप जिंदा ही नहीं हो मेरे दोस्त। I don't think that is possible for you have not to feel lonely at some point of your life. So I think that हाँ, मैं most certainly, सड़क 2 हम बना रहे हैं, सड़क 2 जो हम बना रहे हैं, संजय दत्त को ऐसे एक दौर में पकड़ रहे हैं जैसे वो आज के दौर में हैं। तो we are dealing with the issue of depression, मगर कमर्शियल फिल्म बना रहे हैं eventually हम। तो yes, we have to make our point, but we have to choose a canvas. जैसे हम बातें कर रहे थे कि why didn't she make a documentary out of this? But I think जब भी आप एक mainstream format को इस्तेमाल करते हैं, आपकी बात कहीं कभी ज़्यादा आगे पहुंचती है, because you kind of normalize it. So I applaud this and I am all for, that's why I'm here. I'm here to support these women, but I think that it's a very very brave decision, and I think कि हम सबको, अगर हम जब ये देखते हैं और हमको लगता है कि कोई बात है, तो फिर हमारा फर्ज बनता है कि हम इस फिल्म के मैसेज को आगे कहीं ना कहीं पहुंचाए। अगर लगती है कि बात नहीं है, मत पहुंचाओ, मगर दिल से करो, वरना मत करो यार, बिकॉज ये फिल्म जो है, जो मैंने देखा, ये दिल से बनी है। You know, that's why we can sit and talk like this.
सुचित्रा जी एंड सैला जी, आप लोगों से एक आखिरी सवाल जानना चाहेंगे कि स्क्रीन पे हमने देखा कि इंटरनेशनल लेवल पर फिल्म को बहुत ही सराहा गया, ढेरों सारे अवार्ड भी मिले हैं इस फिल्म को लेकर, तो इंडियन ऑडियंस को लेकर कुछ प्रेशर फील करती है कि इंडिया में ये फिल्म
नहीं, ये जरूर चलेगी, जहाँ पे भी आप रिलीज करो जरूर चलेगी, क्योंकि सबको उठ के देखना ही पड़ेगा कि ये आपकी फैमिली में भी हो सकती है। ऐसा नहीं है कि ये फैमिली यूएसए में है, सैन फ्रांसिस्को में है, सिलिकॉन वैली में है, तो वहीं पर होता है। नहीं, स्टैटिस्टिकली आप बोल सकते हैं कि हाँ, 1 out of 9 Americans over the age of 12 are on antidepressants, which is a staggering, but that हम लोग बोलते हैं अमेरिका में, नहीं, यहाँ पे भी होता है, यहाँ पे भी होता है, तो स्टोरी चाहे वहाँ पे सेट किया गया हो, लेकिन 120% लोग रिलेट कर सकेंगे, क्योंकि हमारे बहुत सारे हम सब अभी मॉडर्न फैमिलीज में हैं. आई नो दैट माई पीयर ग्रुप, मेरे जनरेशन के जो लोग हैं, अगर ये देखेंगे तो आई नो कि लोगों को थोड़ा झटका मिलने ही वाला है.
ऑल्सो अवेयरनेस की बात है. हमारे हिंदुस्तान में अवेयरनेस नहीं है कि जैसे अब्रॉड में ये बोल रहे हैं कि एंटी डिप्रेसेंट्स लोग खाते हैं, उनको पता है कि इफ देयर इज डिप्रेशन वो चले जाते हैं साइकाइट्रिस्ट या साइकोलॉजिस्ट को मिलने. यहाँ आने के लिए इतना मुश्किल है लोगों को. दैट इज वाई अवेयरनेस ये मूवीज के थ्रू ही हो रही है. एक फिल्म आती है ऐसी जो साइकोलॉजिकल बेस्ड होती है, इतनी अवेयरनेस हो जाती है कि बहुत सारे पेरेंट्स एंड यंगस्टर्स एंड adults start coming for help.
And sorry, what's nice is the way that Saila has made the film. It's not, she's not trying to push the topic down people's throats. It is real. It is real. It's it's very realistic. I mean, the festivals that I've been to, and people who have seen it have come up to me saying this really could be happening in our family. It is not, making the world look at it through rose-tinted glasses. It's real, and that's what people need to see.
Actually, I had a screening where there were a lot of counselors, educators, teachers, and many of them came after and said, this is so realistic. And actually, I was a little nervous because, you want, that's your goal, but you don't know if you've reached that goal, right? So when I saw the audience, I was really worried, but many of them said, oh no, this is so realistic. This is exactly how, I've seen so many families like this. So.
Last question.
Saila, how did you come up for the cast? How you selected the cast?
The cast, I have to say, she's brilliant in the movie.
That is why we are asking
That was
you.
very, very hard, actually, because I was looking in the U.S. I started in the U.S. I had a casting agent, and many of the male, especially the first person I cast was the lead actor, the male. And many of the males are typecast into these comedic kind of roles up there, the American males of that age group. So I didn't want a comedian, because you can't take him seriously. It's a very, very heavy role. And I wanted somebody who could play that whole range. Like, he has to be this really, confident, competent CEO type, and then he has to be very vulnerable at the other end of the spectrum. So he has to play that whole range, So I looked and looked and looked there, and I didn't like anybody. And then I found Ali actually through IMDb, believe it or not. But I did a search, and I saw him, and then he sent me a tape, and he just blew it away, And then I started looking for the lead actress, and I used Nandini Shrikant, who's a local casting agent here in Mumbai, and she suggested Suchitra, and Suchitra just blew me away. I mean. She gives such a beautiful performance in this movie. It's just it's really worth seeing.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no doubt.
She gave me the 2 most difficult scenes. One was a 6-page scene and one was a 5-page scene. And I had to do that for my audition. And as she says, I nailed it, so I got it.
Okay, last question, Mr. Chetan.
Pooja, with time, do you think people from the film industry are coming up with their problems? Like even Miss Deepika Padukone also came up with this her problem. Do you think there has been a change with time?
Yes and no. I mean, I come from lineage where we never waited for time to speak our minds. When you're born to Mahesh Bhatt, you speak your mind. It's a genetic flaw. तो हमें तो कभी ये problem हुआ नहीं, in fact opposite problem था. But I think it's wonderful to have women like Deepika. It's wonderful when my sister Shaheen, who is a sibling of today Alia and daughter of Mahesh Bhatt, sister Pooja Bhatt, to kind of come out and speak about this. But I do feel that we need to hear people in the public eye who are in mainstream Bollywood speak more about concerns that really, really affect us. I think that we're living in a time where young people especially are so manicured and they're so correct politically. There's never a hair out of place, there's never a quote out of place. And I think that somewhere along the line, when I today at 45 when I go to places and people ask me, why aren't you acting again? I say, why do you want me to act, yeah? You can look at 25 other women who are much younger than me. They're like, no, we related to you. So, like my father said to us, he said, बेटा जब 26 साल के बाद अब आपके गाने बजेंगे ना, तब वो मेलोडी ने कहीं ना कहीं हार्टलैंड में कहीं जाके एक जगह बनाई है. So I think that, are we bleeding with our stars enough? Because they're not bleeding with their audiences enough. You're only presenting your best face to your audiences, to your fans. And your audiences love you more. Your fans love you more when you show your human side to them. When Imran spoke about his son's cancer, he kind of somewhere really made a place further in his fans' hearts than he had before by just merely entertaining them. Deepika seems more human, more identifiable, because she talks about something that a lot of young women out there probably deal with. So I would think that I would like to hear people today who are ruling the roost be a little bit more open about their frailties, because eventually our frailties are our strengths.
सुचित्रा, पर ऐसा नहीं लगता आपको कि जब लोग सामने आते हैं, फिर वो आजकल सोशल नेटवर्किंग ट्रोल्स शुरू हो जाते हैं, ये सब चीजें, तो लोग सहम जाते हैं बाहर आने में?
Well, that's just it. I mean, you can't live your life thinking about the trolls on social media. That's why I am active, but not totally active. And you really can't live your life dependent on them. Otherwise, you're not living.
Exactly.
You're not. It is up to you to live your life the way you want to. Be true to yourself. If you want to talk about it, great. Just talk about it. Don't be scared about anyone or anything, because who died and made them the judge? Who died and made them God to give opinion that you shouldn't say this, or we can
exactly. और besides कि अगर एक शख्स वहाँ पे बैठ के anonymously सिर्फ मतलब गंदगी और मतलब ये फैला रहा है, तो कितना दुखी इंसान होगा यार वो. तो अगर हम सामने वाले को मतलब ह्यूमनाइज कर लेना, जैसे लोग बोलते हैं कि सेंसर बोर्ड है, सेंसर बोर्ड तो इंसान से ही बना हुआ है ना. कोई मतलब बाहर से मतलब आसमान से तो आदमी नहीं आया है ना. वो भी डरा हुआ है यार कि मेरी नौकरी चली जाएगी अगर मैं साइन कर लूंगा. तो सब लोग 3 साल आगे सबको खुद के प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं. ह्यूमनाइज ईच अदर. अंडरस्टैंड कि वो ट्रोल बेचारा इधर किसी के पेरोल पे होगा, या बहुत ही तकलीफ में होगा, या उसका ग्रामर बहुत बुरा होता है मोस्ट केसेस. तो तब मैं तो आई डोंट इवन रिस्पॉन्ड कि अगर मैं एम अ ग्रामर नार्सी, आई एम सॉरी टू से दिस. अगर आपका ग्रामर सही नहीं होगा, मैं आपके साथ आर्ग्यू नहीं कर सकती हूँ. So, I mean, that was meant to be a joke. Young man, don't look so serious. So I'm just saying is that troll के जगह जरा आप अगर जाके बैठे और सोचेंगे कि troll जो है बेचारा कितनी तकलीफ में होगा actually. अपनी जिंदगी को कितना मतलब छोटा समझ रहा होगा कि सिर्फ वो आपकी जिंदगी को फॉलो कर रहा है और सिर्फ नेगेटिविटी फैला रहा है. बड़प्पन चाहिए ना तारीफ करने के लिए, किसी की बुराई करने के लिए मतलब वो तो कोई भी कर सकता है. So you need this is, I mean, love is an attribute for the courageous, not for the weak. So being able to stand by, step back, praise the other, you need to be a large human being for that. सबके मुंह से तारीफ नहीं निकलती है, दिल से तो बिल्कुल नहीं निकलती है.
Okay, last question, Chaitanya, please.
Director Saila, valley represents a geographical depression between mountains. Did you have that symbolic concept in mind when you titled this?
Exactly. You're the only one who picked up on it, though.
Oh, give it up for him, ladies and gentlemen.
This is why I say we need to rewind and go back to the days when people read more into things that they should have.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Before we sign off, a few of our friends came in a little late, so I'd love to show them the trailer once again, please. Like I said earlier as well, 40...
May I ask you a question that's purely commercial? Sure. I want to know how much did it cost you to make this movie and how many days did you shoot it in?
Oh boy,
she shot it in exactly 21 working days.
21 You're kidding
days.
me.
No. The entire movie was shot in 21 working days.
And I'm sorry, but I mean, what kind of budgets have you worked with?
It's less than $1 million. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is in locations around, so not in like one place, one set, no. Locations. We were shocked. Me and Ali were completely shocked. We said, so, what? In 21 days she's finishing this movie? Because it's it's an incredible movie, but kudos, really.
I'm still tired, let's put it that way.
No, but that's amazing. That's
for a
amazing.
first-time
and I think
director,
that just
for
proves
first
that,
film.
that proves that your inner landscape was so, you just knew what that was, which is why you could kind of create it like that. So, and we feel very good making movies for 7.5 crores and in 45-50 days to learn from you.
Okay, so we'll have a look at the trailer right now once again.
Thank you, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you all for
14th
being here.
October.
Thank you so much.
Do you want to tell them something about the
Yes,
premiere?
14th October at Juhu PVR is the screening, and 15th as well at Juhu PVR will be the premiere of The Valley. On the Mami website, you can find more information as regards tickets, etc., passes and tickets and whatever. So please, please, please.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so here goes.
Here's the trailer.
The trailer once again.
A little bit about the film. For those who haven't seen the trailer, tell the audience what would you like to tell them about.
Okay. So The Valley is about an immigrant entrepreneur in America, and his daughter. His life looks very ideal. He's made it. He's successful, and then his younger daughter, goes away to college, and she commits suicide. So it totally shocks him because he's disconnected. He doesn't understand what's going on in her life, and so he tries to find out what happened. And so it follows his journey, his trajectory, as he's searching for answers.
So when you thought you have to make such kind of film and such strong concept film, when you thought you have to make such kind of strong concept movie, when you started everything for this?
So the idea came to me almost 8 years ago. And it happened during this whole cluster suicide issue that happened in Silicon Valley. There were a string of suicides, one after the other, all in one high school. And it's supposed to be one of the best high schools in California, in the whole America, actually. So I was just thinking, why is this happening? And at the same time, I was raising my two children, and kind of seeing what they're experiencing. And so that's when I thought of the story. And then many things happened in my life. I had a brother who had a mental health issue, and he passed away actually right before I started writing the script. And that just all that pain that I was feeling at the time, I think it went into the script. And so it became he was a lot like the character Maya, like very, very, very sweet, very nice person, really innocent kind of person. So his character kind of went into this other character for me, morphed into Maya for me, I think. And so those two things made me write the script, and was the impetus behind the movie.
So ma'am, how does it feel like you are part of this movie? It's damn beautiful. We have seen the trailer, and it's really touched to our heart. So how does it feel?
It's incredible. I mean, when I first got the script to read, when I first spoke to Saila on Skype, when she decided that I was going to do the movie, then itself I knew, when I spoke to her for the first time, I knew that she was a very sensitive person, and you knew that any film that she would end up making, मैं जानती थी कि बहुत ही sensitive topic भी sensitive है, लेकिन बहुत ही sensitively ये address करेगी वो topic को. तो मैं बहुत ही खुश थी कि I've been given the role of Rupa, which is the mother, which there's a whole gamut of emotions. Obviously, बहुत guilt है. She feels a lot of guilt because she doesn't have enough time for her daughter. She thinks that she's not been in touch too much with her daughter's life. The daughter finds out she's having an affair. Is it because of that? All of that. So a nice range of emotions for Rupa's character. So and ultimately, when we went to the States to shoot it, Ali Khan, though I've known for 16, 17 years, so it was very, very easy to act with him as my husband. The other two actors she has got as the daughters, Salman Khan and Agnita Thakur, who plays Maya. Brilliant actresses. One is from LA, one is from New York. And what a sensitive actress, the girl Agnita who plays Maya. We learned a few things from her. Frankly, there were times when Ali and me were discussing and saying, my God, we wouldn't have analyzed that the way she has. So her casting was absolutely brilliant. वो दिखते भी हैं जैसे हमारे बच्चे हैं. So it was wonderful to be part of it.
पूजा काफी ज़्यादा मुंबई में ऐसा होता है, बड़े शहरों में भी ऐसा होता है कि हम डॉटर्स को या फिर बेटी या फिर बेटे को टाइम नहीं दे पाते, तो एक अवेयरनेस होगा सभी लोगों के दौरान.
अवेयरनेस तो होगा. एक तो मैं इनको मुबारकबाद देना चाहूँगी, बिकॉज आई थिंक आज के दौर में जब न्यूज़ भी एंटरटेनमेंट हो गया है, for a filmmaker to choose to make a movie about a topic like this is very, very brave. So I applaud you, and I applaud my friend Suchi for kind of pouring her heart out in the trailer that I saw. I think depression के बारे में, mental health के बारे में, alcoholism के बारे में हम बातें नहीं करते हैं, और एक बहुत ही यूनिक पर्सपेक्टिव होता है जब एक फेमिनिन पर्सपेक्टिव आप सुनते हैं, और लड़की भी जो जब जिसकी मौत है, एक यंग गर्ल की सुसाइड होती है. सो आई थिंक दैट इन इटसेल्फ इज़ वेरी यूनिक. आई थिंक दैट इट्स समथिंग दैट वी मस्ट सपोर्ट. जब मैंने अपनी फिल्म करियर की शुरुआत की थी, मैंने तमन्ना बनाई थी जो फीमेल इन्फेंटिसाइड पे थी. उस टाइम पे मैंने मीडिया के लोगों को फ़ोन करके कहा कि मैंने देखो दिल से, शिद्दत से एक फिल्म बनाई है इस ऐसे टॉपिक पे जो मेरे लिए बहुत मायने रखती है. अगर आपको लगता है कि इसके अंदर कुछ भी सच है तो प्लीज़ मेरा मैसेज जो है आप आगे बढ़ाएं. तो मैं उनकी बिहाफ पे, ये बहुत ही शाय होगी, अमेरिकन भी है आदि, तो मांगेगी नहीं ऐसे ऐसे, मैं उनके बिहाफ पे आप सबको बोल रही हूँ कि अगर आपको लगता है कि कहीं ना कहीं आपने अपने खुद की ज़िंदगी में आप इस दौर से गुजरे हैं जब भी आपको भी तन्हाई महसूस करना पड़ा, आप भी अकेले अपने आप को महसूस किया, आपको भी डिप्रेशन हुआ है, तो प्लीज़ इस फिल्म के मैसेज को आप आगे बढ़ाइएगा. क्योंकि हम बातें करते हैं ऐसी फिल्मों के बारे में मगर देखते कुछ और हैं. हम बोलते हैं कुछ और हैं और करते कुछ और हैं. जो हम छुपाते हैं वो हम होते हैं. तो आई थिंक कि ऐसी जब ये फिल्म बनती है, जब भी हम आज के दौर में जब भी सोशल मीडिया पे हम कुछ और चेहरा दिखा रहे हैं और एक्चुअली अंदर कुछ और ही हैं, ऐसी फिल्म की ज़रूरत है. एंड वी नीड टू अपलॉड देम. 21 दिन में फिल्म बनाई है, अभी जान लोगे क्या आप लोग? जान लोगी ऑडियंस. आई थिंक वी मस्ट गो आउट एंड सपोर्ट दिस बिकॉज इट्स समथिंग दैट नीड्स टू बी स्पोकन अबाउट मोर.
इसके अलावा बहुत सारे अवार्ड भी मिले हैं फिल्म को, तो कहीं ना कहीं
अवार्ड मिलेगा तब जब हिंदुस्तानी ऑडियंस भी जाके इस फिल्म को देख के एक टॉकिंग पॉइंट बना देगा.
आप मानते हो कि ऑडियंस आजकल स्मार्ट हो गई, कंटेंट ओरिएंटेड?
ऑडियंस हमेशा स्मार्ट थी. हम जो सपोजिटली फिल्म इंडस्ट्री के जो एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, हम काफ़ी ऑडियंसेस को अंडर एस्टिमेट करते हैं और कहते हैं कि वो तैयार नहीं है. बात आज ऑडियंसेस और फिल्म मेकर्स के बारे में नहीं है. बात प्रॉब्लम आज एक मार्केटिंग का गेम हो गया है कि आप कितनी भी अच्छी फिल्म बनाएं, क्या आपके पास ऐसे बजट्स हैं जो कभी कभी एक बहुत ही बड़ी मगर वाहियात फिल्म के पास होती है जो वो आपको मतलब सुनामी की तरह ड्राउन आउट कर दे. इसलिए आप सबकी मदद ऐसे दौर पे मैं बिना झिझक के मांग सकती हूँ. क्योंकि अगर एक कमर्शियल फिल्म बनी थी जहाँ पे हमारा या इनका एक ही एक द गोल वाज कि ओनली टू मेक मनी, देन आई वुडंट बी आस्किंग दिस. आई थिंक कि अगर इस औरत ने अपनी खुद के पैसों से एक ऐसी सेंसिटिव फिल्म बनाई है ऐसे सब्जेक्ट पे जिसके बारे में लोग बात नहीं करते हैं, और हम इस मैसेज को आगे नहीं लें तो फिर लानत है हम सब पर. थैंक यू वेरी मच. अपनी दुनिया में अगर कोई एक्चुअली रियल लाइफ पटाखे हों उन्हें प्लीज़ सेलिब्रेट करें. पटाखे जलाएं ना, अपने रियल लाइफ पटाखे को सेलिब्रेट करें बस. वो तब रिलीज होगी जब भी मेरे जो पार्टनर्स हैं श्री भूषण कुमार जी और श्री ब्रेव्स जी फेयरली और ट्रांसपेरेंटली मेरे सारे वर्कर्स के पैसे रिलीज कर दें, मेरे कॉपीराइट को वायलेट ना करें, तब रिलीज होगी वरना नहीं रिलीज होगी. थैंक यू वेरी मच.